Welcome to a Telltale Books video. I'm Greg, and I'm starting something a little bit new, kind of continuing, because we already did one previous Greek play, Lysistrata, by Aristophanes. This time I want to talk about Antigone by Sophocles. And, of course, I don't speak Greek and really have never heard these things spoken. I'm probably murdering all the words and names in these things, but I hope you'll understand and just pass over that. I'm doing the best I can. I think it's Antigone. I could be wrong. I believe it's Sophocles. I think I'm fairly right on that point. So a little about Sophocles. He was, of course, a playwright during the 400s BC, around the time of Periclean Athens. And before Sophocles was Aeschylus, and after Sophocles you had Euripides and Aristophanes and some others. So Sophocles was kind of the second really major playwright I'm aware of in Greek history, with Aeschylus being the first. And before Sophocles and Aeschylus, there's very little in the way of literature. You got things like Homer, of course the Bible, you've got the Epic of Gilgamesh, but at least as far as what has survived, the first of what we would call literature is these plays that were done in ancient Greece. Most of them done at the time of Periclean Athens, when Athens was at its height and was a democratic state. So we're talking about the oldest known fictive dramas in history. We're going back to the very beginnings of literature, of most literature. There's very little surviving before Aeschylus and Sophocles. So Antigone is a play. It was meant to be performed, and it's a story of one of the daughters of Oedipus. Oedipus is the guy that accidentally murdered his father and then accidentally married his mother. They had children, like 4 children, and Antigone is one of his daughters. He also had these 2 sons, and Oedipus and King Creon were at war. Antigone was with King Creon because she was betrothed to Creon's son. And one of Oedipus's male children was with King Creon and was in the service of Creon's army. Another of Oedipus's sons was serving in Oedipus's army. So at the beginning of the play, the 2 of them have fought. Somehow they killed each other, and they're both laying there dead, and Antigone wants to bury them both, but King Creon says this is his law, that the one brother will be treated as a hero and will receive a proper burial, but the other brother's body, he insists it must be left in the field for the birds and the dogs to chew at. Antigone doesn't like this. She feels both should receive some kind of burial because she loved them both. She goes ahead and buries the other brother that the king didn't want buried. Of course, King Creon gets really pissed off at this. He broke her law, or she broke his law, and so he sentences her to death. But he's going to put her to death by locking her in a cave where she will just starve and waste away. And so he does that, and so yes, she is dying in this cave out in the wilderness. Creon's wife and son are really pissed off about this. So they turn against him, and a lot of other people turn against Creon for what he has done. And so, in insisting that everybody follows what he says and not contradict him, he loses his whole family. He basically loses his whole kingdom, because nobody is looking at him and seeing him as a good ruler. Now, a couple things when you're experiencing something like this. It's very, very, very old, more than 2,000 years old, written for a completely different culture, society, completely different rules, completely different morals and ethics. They're still human beings. They're still very much like us, but their world was different. So the way they wrote was different. You're not going to find something like a modern play. You're not going to find something like Arthur Miller when you pick up Sophocles or Aristophanes or Aeschylus or Euripides. You're going to find something very, very different from that. But it is still really good. And if you bear in mind, this is the beginnings of it all. There wasn't much done before this that we know of. At least it hasn't come down the ages. Although Sophocles himself, he wrote well over 100 plays, but we only have 7 complete plays. And because it's such a small number, I'm going to go through all the plays of Sophocles and talk about all of them. It's only 7 of them. This is the first one. Antigone is thought to be the first surviving play of his. It's thought to have first been performed in 441 BC. None of that is absolutely certain. It's based on scattered records that are incomplete. It's very difficult to pin that down. And then, of course, I'm reading this in English. I'm sure it comes across different if you're able to read the original Greek, but I can't, so I'm reading the English. And it is a play. It's meant to be performed. It's meant to have actors and sets and emotings on stage that you don't put in writing. You don't get that when you read the play. You have to see it performed to really get the full experience. I did watch a performance I found on YouTube of Antigone, which was very good. I forget the theater company that put it on, but it's a video out on YouTube for free. You can watch it. It was very good. The actors were really good. I enjoyed the actors in it a lot. And that's what I've been finding with plays, whether it's Sophocles or Aristophanes or William Shakespeare, they are better if you can see them performed. That's the real way to experience them. If you can't, you can read them, but you really should try to find some kind of recording on YouTube or somebody local putting it on or something. Or in some cases, there are really good movies, like Titus Andronicus had a movie made of it fairly recently. That was just amazing. That's the way to experience it, not so much reading. So you lose a lot when you just read a play. And when that play has been translated, and when that play is more than 2,000 years old. There's a lot that, our perspective is just way different. And so you have to bear all that in mind when you're reading something like this. So I did enjoy this. I really enjoyed it. But I felt like it was too small in scope. I felt like it needed to be bigger. Which, of course, that's one of the problems being a modern person, having read Lord of the Rings or plays by Shakespeare or seeing the Ten Commandments, you just kind of want this to be more epic, and it isn't. It's only a handful of actors on a stage, and so it's very much narrowed down to a small number of people interacting. So I found myself wanting it to be a bigger story, wanting there to be a lot more to it, wanting it to be a little more epic than it is, not quite so close and small in scale. But like I say, that's a modern conceit. The story is great. This is a great play. I'm not going to give this a top tail, mainly because there were certain things about it that just there are certain things. I've already explained a lot of them that you have to bear in mind when reading this, that it's not going to be what you think it should be. But the other side of it is that it's very misogynist. Okay. Poor Antigone is just kind of pushed around by all these men through the whole play and sentenced to death. And it's just kind of too much in this one. We'll see how the rest of Sophocles goes, but this one, it's just a little bit too much the way that she was being treated. I think it's a little bit unreal even for back then. But bearing all those things in mind, it was good. It is something that I think everyone should experience at least one of these ancient plays. They are interesting. Because they're so different from what we do today, and because they are the foundation that all of our fiction has been built on since then. Everything we do today is built on the foundation laid by Homer and the Epic of Gilgamesh and Sophocles and Aeschylus and Euripides and Aristophanes and all the other people back in the ancient world who were the first ones to write these kind of entertainments. So I do think you should look this up and read it. It doesn't take long. It's very short. And if you are interested in finding it, my preferred is, of course, the Loeb Classical Library, which you can buy brand new. These are published by the Harvard University Press. These books have been around a while. When I was in college is where I first came across the Loeb Classical Library. And that's where I read a lot of this old Greek and Roman classical texts and became fascinated by it. And so recently when I found out I could actually buy these books for myself, I started buying them. So far I've got the 1 volume of Aristophanes and I've got 2 volumes of Sophocles from the Loeb Classical Library. Very good books. And the interesting thing about these, if you can see it, on the one side is the original Greek. If you're able to read it, it's there. And on the other side is the modern English translation. Very cool. I wish I could read the Greek. But those are excellent books. They're not super expensive. And like I say, this is a brand new book. This isn't some used thing I had to search down. Another good source for the play Antigone just came out. Before I did this video, I was going through my emails and I got an email from Standard eBooks. They are a group, it's a nonprofit group. They are going through creating very nice ebooks. Basically, they start with Project Gutenberg texts, but Project Gutenberg texts are not very polished. They're there, but they're a little difficult to read because they're not very well formatted and such. There's a lot lacking there. So what they do for Standard ebooks is they use those texts. Sometimes they'll refer to some other copies of the text also, and they'll recreate these books, and they lay them out very nicely, put some beautiful cover art on the ebook. do a very good job with the typography, just do a very good job creating the ebook so that it's a lot more readable than what Project Gutenberg is doing. And these are still free ebooks. You go to their website, you can download all of them. Today, they released Antigone by Sophocles. They also released Oedipus et Colonus, I believe. Yeah, by Sophocles. So 2 of Sophocles' plays as ebooks. Totally free. Very nicely done. That and a lot of other stuff that they just released today, and all the stuff they've done in the past. I really, really believe in this organization, what they're doing, and I think it's a great way for you to get to read these kinds of things that you might find them in the bookstore, but might be a little hard. These are texts that are a little more hard to come by in a lot of cases, and they're putting them into some very nicely formatted ebooks. So check out Standard eBooks. That's a really good source. And if you want, my old copy of the Bantam Classics, Bantam, right? This is the Bantam Classics line. Complete Plays of Sophocles. This is in almost perfect condition. It is my copy. I've had this since 1990s, I believe. And I am going to be putting this probably on our Pango store because it does have a barcode. This will be up for sale. Complete Plays of Sophocles. Really, really awesome condition book. And so you can read all these plays of Sophocles once I have it up there and you buy it. I only got the 1 copy, but that's going in one of our online stores. We have an Etsy store, we have a Pango bookstore. Just look for Telltale Books on either one of them, and you'll find us. So that's about all I have to say about Antigone. It's a good play. It's a little misogynistic. It's very old, but it's fascinating for how it is the foundation of everything we're reading today. I mean, everything we're reading today has one of these old Greek plays as its foundation. Have you read Antigone? Please leave your comments on the video. And otherwise, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button, and come on back for the other 6 plays of Sophocles. The next one's going to be Ajax, and I believe that's number 2. Yes, Ajax is number 2, roughly the same year, so maybe it was actually number 1. How am I supposed to know? I don't. I'm doing my best. But Ajax is the next one I'm going to read and report on. I hope you'll join me for that, and all the other Sophoclean plays, and all the other videos that we do here on Telltale Books.